You sit in the quiet with your Bible open, waiting for a word that never comes. The only thing you hear in the dark is the hum of the ceiling fan. You've followed the instructions, you've prayed, you've fasted for days, and you've filled your journals with entries that feel like they're going nowhere. It feels like your words are hitting a concrete ceiling and bouncing right back at you. That silence eventually turns into a specific kind of internal doubt. You start to fear that you're too broken, too sinful, or simply too distracted to hear what everyone else seems to catch so easily. That heavy silence is actually a signal that your approach to listening needs to change. Imagine two people in the same quiet room. The first is a striver. They treat hearing God like an intellectual marathon, leaning over a notebook with intense concentration. To them, catching a word from God feels exactly like trying to grab smoke with their bare hands. They spend the entire hour interrogating every thought. Was that God? Was that my own subconscious? Was that just dinner? That constant second guessing creates so much internal noise that the signal they're looking for gets buried. Then there is the knower. Their life is just as messy as the strivers, but they move with a quiet, unshakable confidence that seems to come naturally. If you asked how they hear God, they wouldn't give you a formula. They would tell you that they stopped trying to hear him and simply started spending time with him. The difference here is a matter of familiarity. One person is hunting for a signal, while the other is staying close to the source. To see where that familiarity comes from, we have to look at Jesus in Jerusalem. He's surrounded by religious leaders who are demanding proof, circling him like wolves and asking for a plain answer about who he is. Instead of a debate, Jesus talks about sheep. In the first century, a shepherd lives in the dirt with his flock. He sleeps near them and walks with them every single day. Their bond is built on constant, unbreakable proximity. Jesus says his sheep follow him because they recognize his voice. They don't have to think about it. His voice is simply the most recognizable sound in their world. Notice what Jesus doesn't mention. He doesn't tell the sheep to work hard at decoding his instructions or to follow a 5-step method for distinguishing his tone from the wind. He makes it clear that hearing happens as the natural byproduct of a developed relationship. We often treat hearing God like tuning an old radio, spinning dials and adjusting antennas to find a faint signal in the static. But Jesus is describing a state of unbroken presence. Think about being in a stadium with 50,000 screaming fans. In that chaos, you would still recognize your mother's voice instantly if she called your name. That recognition doesn't take effort. It takes a history of being near her. You see this in a long marriage, too. One person can hear 4 ordinary words from their spouse and immediately know if they are tired, frustrated, or at peace. They've spent decades at the same table and through the same storms. But if that same couple only spoke when the car broke down or the bills were due, the voice would eventually start to sound distant and strange. That's the natural result of distance. Spiritual silence often reveals that a relationship has become transactional. When we spend all our time asking for things, we lose the ability to simply abide. You can feel this distance in the frustration of failed prayer methods, or the quiet jealousy you feel when other people describe their vivid experiences with God. Prayer starts to feel like a ritual you're executing in an empty room. You're going through the motions, but the connection feels severed. These feelings serve as an internal alarm system. They aren't a punishment. They are a signal that your soul hasn't been home in a while. You can start moving back toward that sense of home by changing how you show up. Spend the first 5 minutes of your prayer time in total silence. Arrive with no agenda and no requests. Just tell him, I'm here. Next, stop auditing every thought. Instead of interrogating every impression, look for the quiet, persistent pull that stays with you long after the prayer is over. Finally, carry the conversation into the mundane parts of your day, while you are driving, while doing the dishes, while you are walking. When you include him in the small moments, his voice becomes recognizable in the big ones. And this is how the striving ends. You stop measuring your performance and start recognizing a voice that sounds like home. You aren't straining to hear a stranger. You are listening to someone you've finally taken the time to know. Stop trying to hear him and start spending time with him. Go to the comments right now and type, I am his sheep.
By writing those words, you're telling your heart that the striving is over.